one, which is the YouTube one. Hopefully that will work now. Let's see. So I'm not sure where my video was going before. There we go. Now we're going on both. Okay. Yeah, so I had the YouTube thing going to the wrong place. I have no idea what channel that was going to, but we'll find out in a little bit. Okay, so if you're just tuning in, and I'm going to kind of wait a little bit because I know people are going to want to know what's in this envelope. So this is not some kind of inappropriate magazine, and I'll pull it up here on my computer screen so you can see what I'm working on. So there's a great nonprofit foundation called the Video Game History Foundation, and they have this this program where they will send you a blind box vintage video game magazine once a month. And it's a nonprofit. This is all for their fundraising, and I guess they've been building an archive of. And you know, I'm sorry. There's somebody on the Amazon chat that is using my name, and I really wish you wouldn't do that because it confuses people, and I think you need to take that off. Thanks. So what we've got on here is a, give me 1 second here, folks. So what we've got on here is a magazine that's part of this blind box program. And this is a magazine that they're going to send me once a month, and you can choose like what era you want the magazine from. So this is, I went with the 80s to 90s era, and you don't know what you're going to get, but they do a nice job of like packaging this apparently to give you, you know, the full experience here, along with like a certificate of authenticity and everything. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So it's kind of a mystery envelope, and yeah, you know, this is the worst part about this is that I live in a small town. So when you go to put in your information to get this thing delivered to you, they had their system like filled in the wrong address. So it ended up going to a different place in town, but the post office, you know, we're very small here. The post office knows where I live. So they corrected the address. So thankfully it says the Video Game History Foundation here at the top of the envelope. So we're okay there. But it's kind of a neat thing. It's a neat idea. And I guess what happens is they get a lot of they have a lot of duplicated magazines, so they figured, hey, why don't we ship them out? So, you know, I'm guessing there's probably on their end maybe $3 or $4 of cost, and then the postage, which they're doing media mail, so it's pretty cheap. So I would expect that this is probably, I don't know, you know, probably a $10 or $15 margin for them. So before we open this up, I wanted to talk about some of the things that the foundation does, because they have some cool stuff. And what I would do is check out their blog page. And there's a couple of things that I think they've really contributed a lot to recently. So there was a virtual reality headset that was supposed to come out on the Sega Genesis way back in the mid-90s. And it was very close to release. It's this thing on the left here. They had it completely ready to go. It was put together. The product was in development. And then they abruptly canceled it. Now, there's a book called Console Wars that you can find on Amazon. And it was an interesting story because apparently the Sega VR, and actually oh yeah, this is cool. Check it out. The Sega VR headset was making people sick. And apparently it was like making kids, like little kids, like getting headaches. Like it just wasn't fully baked. And remember, you're dealing with like the Sega Genesis, not a lot of horsepower there. Even like some of our top-end gaming PCs really struggle with this, right? But no one ever saw any of the games or anything because apparently this was like fully developed, and there was software and hardware and all the equipment was put together, but it never saw the light of day, and nobody has ever seen anything from this system up until just recently. And what happened was the Sega, or the Video Game History Foundation people actually found some source code, and they recompiled it, and then they wrote an emulator to get one of these old Sega VR games actually running on a Oculus headset or a HTC headset. They developed an emulator. I tried it out. I have to try it again because I couldn't get it to work right. And maybe we'll do a stream in a few weeks when I get it figured out, where we try this whole thing out. But they basically replicated the experience, and I'll show you what it looks like. You got to check out the blog page because they went into detail, and their code preservation people are really good about this kind of stuff. But this was what Sega VR was going to look like. Nobody had seen this. There had been like a few images from trade shows and stuff, but this is it actually running. And you can download this emulator courtesy of the Foundation and run the game in your VR headset. I mean, it's certainly not up to par for today, but people had said like it was actually, back then, they said it was better than they expected. So that's the kind of work that they're doing at the Foundation, is to try to find some of these things that had gone missing for so long. There's another one here that they did. They've got a lot. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. Here's one where they found some old floppy disks, and I guess this, so this programmer had passed away, and his family had found some floppy disks in his collection, or in his personal archives of stuff. And there was source code for a Nintendo Entertainment System game that was never released, but the discs were in really bad condition, and they had to do some disk repairs on them and stuff. Like, they had to run some utilities to kind of coax the data out. So they went so far as to building their own period PC that was in use when the guy was writing the software to get these discs restored, and they were able to get the game put back together. It's pretty cool, and there's a YouTube video of what that game looked like. Granted, these games are not going to blow you away, but this would have been pretty cool on the NES. This was called Days of Thunder. Apparently, they lost the license, and another company ended up developing the licensed game, but this is what it looked like. So it was kind of like a first-person view, and then you had this side view that would happen at one point, and then you got your car into the pit stop, and you change the tires and all that kind of stuff. So this is just, again, some of the work that the Foundation's been doing. And, we're seeing a lot of, efforts to go into museums and create, collections of things, and they're looking to do more of the academic stuff there. So let me take some questions here. Let me put up the thing. And depending on what's in this magazine, this might be the wrap-up video for Monday. We'll figure out if I can get 15 minutes of content out of this. Bear with me here for a second. I'm just going to pull up my title here. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to get to this. I figured I'd wait for a few more people to come into the stream before we open it up, but it's in there. I have not opened it yet, so we'll see what happens. And as Mark Dell says, yeah, thankfully it is just a legit gaming magazine, or so I hope, because that would be really embarrassing, Mark Dell, if it was something other than that, right? So we got some folks joining us here. We've got Christopher Dale and Mark H. And we got our friend Mark Dell is here. Paul Bakewell is here. Red Hornet is joining us on the Amazon chat, along with Disappointed. Hopefully, I won't be disappointed by this magazine. And I'll start pulling up your chats here. We got Romeric joining us. Hello again. I had a bunch of old magazines. I don't know where they went. But I had like some of the old newsletters from Sega, like all sorts of good stuff. Sega had a great magazine called Visions. And I've been actually downloading a lot of these old magazines from the Internet Archive and just storing them, because I just like having them that I could look at every once in a while. I like looking at the ads more than anything. Mark Dell, yeah, I had a few of those. They have some great 3D remakes of Sega games and some NES games too. I have like a 3D Excite Bike on my thing. Red Hornet wants to know, would this work on the Google Cardboard? No, this probably would only, it would actually be a good candidate for Google Cardboard. But my understanding is that it only works on, right now, just modern VR headsets. David, you are right on time. We haven't opened it yet. Flood of Sins, good afternoon. Frosty Winnipeg is here. Dave Ramroop is here. Chosen Architect. I think I said hello to you already, but you're just on my list here. Red Hornet has about 4 unopened Google Cardboard glasses. You know what's funny about Google Cardboard? I went to VidCon one year, and they were giving them away to everybody that was there after the YouTube keynote, because like that was the big year for Google Cardboard. So on day 2, there was still like hundreds of them left over. So so where I was going at VidCon, I had the industry pass, so I would be on the top floor. So in between each session, I would go back to the table to see how many were left, and nobody was taking them. So I actually had to get, this is a funny story now that I think about it. So they had them all stacked up. I probably have a photo of this somewhere. And every time I walked by, I grabbed like 5 of them. And before I knew it, I had more Google Cardboards than I had luggage available. So that presented a problem. And the reason why I took them all was because, first of all, nobody was taking them. Let's see if I can find the picture of these Google Cardboards. I actually have a picture of this. Yes, here it is. So, yeah, here, check this out. So, they were like, see those boxes back there? Like they just never stopped. You take 5 of them and there'd be 5 more they just put out. So I just kept loading them up. And then I did a giveaway of the Google Cardboard. But what I had to do in order to do that is I had to get those home from Anaheim, California. So I decided one morning to go and get a suitcase so that I could bring these things home, because I really did not have enough room. So I look on my Google map thing, and I'm at like one of these motels, like it was near the convention center right across the street from Disneyland. And there's nothing, like I'm so used to New York where you walk out the door and you can walk to stuff, you know? And I wake up and I look at my Google thing, and like there's a shopping center the equivalent of like 3 blocks away with a store that would probably have a suitcase. I think it was a Kmart or something. So I said, all right, I'll just walk over there. So got up early, walked out there. And then I get to the Kmart, it's not open yet. And then I keep looking, and so before I know it, I'm probably 4 miles away. So I finally found a store that's opening up that I could buy a cheap suitcase in. And so I bought the suitcase. And then rather than walk it all the way back, this was like in the early days of Uber. So I was able to summon an Uber. And I just thought it was cool that like out of nowhere, this car comes to pick you up. I thought that was neat. So I got that. Chomfley98, have I tried the Flight Simulator VR update? Yes, I have. And you know, it's weird. You know, you're going to see a review tonight of the Oculus Quest 2, and I said everything works on it. The one thing that I'm having trouble with on the Oculus Quest 2 is Flight Simulator's VR. I got to see if there's an update. It was projecting some weird stuff over it, so I got to put a little bit more time into it. But it looked good. Actually, it ran better than X-Plane in VR, so that they're actually off to a good start. And Mark Dell says, oh, there's another stream. Oh, so Retro RGB is doing stuff. I should have reached out to him before I went on today. Yes, looks like it's okay. This will be available afterward. So we'll have to see where that goes. Mark says, how did I find that photo so fast? I was using, this time, my Apple Photos. And I have I just searched for Anaheim and it came up. I'd only been there once, so that was easy enough. And yeah, there are some flat ones out there too. I think I reviewed one a long time ago of like a flat one. Wojo Dojo is here. Hello. It's 10 p.m. for the last chicker in Europe. Hello there. All right. Well, why don't we do this? I'm eager. I've had this thing in my house now for a week. I've been waiting to do this. So let me hit the record button here. All right. So let's open it up. Oh, the envelope is falling apart on me. So they don't tell you what they're sending you. It's totally random, and it's all duplicates from their thing. Okay, I'm going to flip it over to the back here so I don't break the surprise. Now, surprisingly, they package these things quite nicely. So you get a certificate of authenticity, along with a sticker here. And let's take a look at that. Pretty nice. Get their logo on the back here. It's actually, it's got a seal on it. And it's signed by Frank Cifaldi and Kelsey Lewin. Kelsey is on Metal Jesus' channel quite a bit. She's got a great store, 2 stores in Seattle, Washington. And it's got a nice piece of cardboard here to keep it good. So let's see what we get. All right, we got Game Pro. So this is Game Pro from May of 1995. How about that? Not a bad thing, because this would be right before all the the 32-bit systems came out. So this was before the Saturn and the PlayStation. I think just before their release, right? Because those came later in the year, and this would have been around the time that your Sega Genesis and Sega CD and Super Nintendo were kind of at their peaks, right before the big changeover there. So at the time, let's see, if this was in May of '95. I was finishing up my freshman year of college, so I had the 3DO at that point. And so you see ads for Super Nintendo games. This is introducing the latest in RPG weaponry, Fleas, Slobber, and Chronic Bad Breath. The Secret of Evermore. I don't think I remember that game. And then here's like a first look at some of the new hardware coming out. So you have like your Sony PlayStation and the Sega Saturn there. Pretty cool stuff. And you got, again, ads for all the 16-bit games. And what's interesting is the gaming media really stepped up its game around this period of time. This is when people started really consuming game media. And this is an ad for the 3DO. Remember we did a stream with the 3DO the other day? So this is the 3DO that was from Gold Star, which is known also now as LG. And 3DO was, of course, a company that made the IP for the hardware, but they licensed it out so other manufacturers could make it. So Panasonic had a 3DO, Gold Star had a 3DO. I think Toshiba had one. And then Creative Labs had a PC card that you could use as well. So this was like the very short window in which the 3DO had some opportunity. And so here's somebody asking if the 3DO was going to have rentals available at rental stores and stuff. And here's the Game Pro gallery. I guess people could send in pictures of whatever they're working on. And here's something. This is the satellite view. I think there was a game that, this is for the Super Nintendo, where you could get games over satellite. Isn't that cool? So somebody found one of the cartridges that was working with this system at one of these Super Potato stores in Japan, and they were able to extract a game that was never released for the Super Nintendo. Talk about those ROMs, right? Pretty neat. But again, all the ads here are for what was available at the time, which were the 16-bit systems. There was a little talk about the Apple Pippin, which was a failure, a very big failure. Didn't last all that long. You can see some videos of the Apple Pippin out there on various websites and stuff. But this magazine's in great shape. I'm actually surprised by like how good it is. The cover, I mean, it's all there. And I guess what they're doing here is they're building an archive for the history of video games, including media. But they only need 1 or 2 copies of each magazine. So these are all the duplicates that they're sending out. But the condition of these is really, really good. So here's a little talk about Street Fighter, the movie, the video game. So remember, Street Fighter had a movie, and then they made a video game of the movie using digitized characters from the movie. That's real meta. Here's an ad for the Super Game Boy. We reviewed that a little while back. Remember I bought one? And some Game Boy games here. And this was actually before the Game Boy Color, if I'm not mistaken, because this was 1995. So the Game Boy Color was still a few years off. So you're still seeing ads for that. A lot of ads for that. And again, this is part of the ad for the Super Game Boy. So they're talking about the library that this can extend to. You can extend your stuff by. Pretty cool. Actually, this actually turned out to be a pretty good magazine, because this is right. This was when I was really the most into these consoles, right at that period of time where things were switching over from the Sega Genesis. So here's like a whole overview of video game hardware. So they've got the 3DO here. They've got the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, and the Jaguar. So these were available along with the Neo Geo. I think the Neo Geo CD was available. Yep, so this is all the stuff that was currently available for sale at that period of time. And there is mention of the 32X. Okay, so this was after it had come out. I didn't buy my 32X until 96 or 97. So it sold for $150. I got mine for $30 on clearance at a Toys R Us. And then you got the Sega CD and the Sega CDX here. And then they're mentioning the Saturn and the PlayStation. And there was some excitement over that. Looking extremely good. Also looking extremely good, they say. And then a big question mark. What's the Nintendo Ultra 64 going to look like? And then here it's talking about the end of the NES. So I guess, was the NES canceled in 95? I don't know. But they were counting it dead at this point in May of 1995. And you could subscribe. So even all this stuff is still in here, like the subscription cards and everything. 12 issues for 20 bucks. These magazines were not cheap. And actually around this time, and we're going to do some stuff with this a little later, I got my old laptop, and I'm getting in a new scaler for it, and we can take a look at some PC Gamer magazines because they came with CDs too. So here is a thing about the Sega channel, and I was so jealous for people that had this because this would work on your cable television system. But this is predating cable modems for the most part. This might have been right when cable broadband was first being experimented with. And what you did is you plugged this into your Sega Genesis, and it would download games over your cable TV service. And you were able to choose what games you wanted to play. My guess is they were constantly transmitting this stuff down the wire, and the cartridge would wait for the game that you're looking for to arrive, and it would download it onto the internal memory, and you could play the game. Kind of like a flash cartridge, but legitly licensed. So that was neat. And people who had this service, I think, really liked it because you spent, a monthly fee. It's kind of like, it's like the equivalent of Game Pass today, right? So that was kind of cool. And then we've got a whole bunch of stuff on online video game information part 1. So remember, around this time, not only was there a big transition in video games, people were first getting on the internet, right? So what you got here are some information about websites that you could go to. But down here, they were also listing out Usenet groups. Many of these I was active in, like recgames.video.3do, which was part of the internet. It was basically the internet's equivalent of a worldwide bulletin board system. And Usenet is still around, not used as much for conference or for discussion these days. But they have some websites you can visit. They've got CompuServe and America Online, all sorts of ways to find video game information online. Little did they know that magazines would have a hard time surviving after all of that. Here's some reviews of some games. Stargate, that was a pretty popular movie at that point, right? I think that came out in 94, and that was the video game version. Blockbuster Video. Video games are like high tops. The new ones are cool, but after a while they start to stink. So you need to go to Blockbuster, where there's always a massive amount of the latest games for you to rent or buy. And so we had a review of the Stargate game, and here's the ad for it. And some other ads here. Cool stuff. So I think I'm going to do here's a Road Rash for the Sega CD. And this was kind of like the cartridge version, but they incorporated video from the 3DO one. And we played the 3DO one recently on one of my live streams. At least I talked about it. Here's some more Sega CD stuff, Wheel of Fortune and Trivial Pursuit. I don't think there is a system made in the last 40 years that did not have some version of Wheel of Fortune on there. Here's an ad for the Quarterback Club for the Sega 32X. Yeah, so I forgot the 32X was out at that point. Like I said, I didn't get mine until maybe 2 years later when it was just getting liquidated. Here's some more 32X games. Motocross Championship. Not a very well-received game, at least nowadays. So they called it Fast Fun, and they gave it a score of, looks like 4. I'm guessing it's out of 5. So that's a lot better than I would have imagined. But, people's perception of what was a good game back then was very different than now. And of course, you had the Jaguar, which was being sold at that point as well. And for a next generation system, it was pretty reasonably priced here at this point, 160 bucks. The game library wasn't all that great, right? But if you wanted to get something better than your 16-bit system, this was probably the lowest price option you had at that point, and remained that way too. Some more stuff here. Eternal Champions. And this is going through some characters in the Eternal Champions game here. So pretty good stuff here. Again, I'm really pleased with the quality of the magazine here. This is the Arnold Schwarzenegger True Lies video game. I had this movie on Laserdisc. That was a fun movie. And then you have Wing Commander 2. Oh, did this ever come out? Interesting. Wing Commander 2 for the Super Nintendo. I don't know if this ever came out. I'll have to look and see if that ever was released. Because I know Wing Commander 1 was available. I didn't know 2 was. 2 was great on the PC. That's actually probably my favorite Wing Commander game, was Wing Commander 2. And then you could get the official guide for Super Return of the Jedi. And there's some 3DO reviews back here. There was a lot to cover back then. Now we've got like, what, 2 or 3 systems? We have 3 systems, the PlayStation, the Xbox, and the Switch. Back then you had a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. And here Panasonic is advertising some games that they were publishing. So remember, Panasonic made a 3DO system, and it looks like they also had a publishing arm for the games. And of course, the Panasonic games would work on their competitors' 3DO consoles. And here's a bunch of reviews on some Jaguar games. Good stuff. Well, I'm pretty happy with this. I was hoping for like a really old one, like, from the late 80s, but this one's actually, I like the time period that this one covers because there was a big transition in the industry. And again, I'm really happy with the quality that got delivered here. And most of my magazines that I had at the time, I could have owned this magazine. I probably bought it at the mall when I would be out shopping or whatever. This is some CDI peripherals, it looks like. But I don't have many actual magazines left over from that time. I think we had a flood in our basement, or my mom tossed them all out. I don't know what happened to them, but that was it for those. Here's a preview of Chaotix for the 32X. This game was actually pretty well received. It was in the Sonic universe. So cool stuff. And I'm always happy to come back and do another live stream with more detail on this, but you get the idea. It's more game Road Rash and Chips and Bits. Remember Chips and Bits? I remember there was a Chips and Bits BBS, but it looks like they were also selling games. Free shipping. Place an order for an out-of-stock software item. $2. Oh, you have to pay a free overnight shipping when it becomes available. $2 handling. Not bad. And it looks like something got spilled on the page here. And then you've got some ads for stuff there, and then on the back an ad for Mortal Kombat 3. Pretty cool. All right, well that was pretty neat, folks. And let me go back through the chat here because I was just kind of going. I figured this might be good for the weekly wrap up because I got a couple of, so I got a video of something that is going to be available on Tuesday, which I cannot yet tell you what it is. But I want to get it done on Monday. So this is going to be, I think, the wrap-up for this week. So there you go. So yeah, so we got the Game Pro magazine here. Pretty cool. And we should probably do these like once a month because I'm going to get these for the foreseeable future. So this might be kind of fun to do. Let me go back through my comments here and see what we got. Yeah, Mark was talking about indexing my life essentially from that photo before. What's funny is I've often looked at what's fun about having an iPhone is that when you take pictures, it just kind of gets into if you have the iCloud syncing, which I do have, and I guess if you're on Google Photos, it's the same thing. And actually, I send my photos to Google and to iCloud, so they're in both places. And it's kind of fun because you could build out, and I've done this. I have to get caught up with it. but I had set up these little smart albums for every month of the year. And so I could go back and say, oh, what was I doing in October of 2015? And I can hit a button and it will just show me everything that I did along with my videos and everything else. And that's why I like having that cloud storage and that backup, because I feel like that is a good way to kind of just keep everything in one place. Because all of those photos are not on the phone, but they're all searchable because they're in the cloud. So so I think what it does is it downloads kind of a small low-res version of it. And then if you want to look at the video or the photo, it'll download the actual one from the cloud. And that one works pretty good. Let's see what else we have here. I'm just going back through the chat a little bit. Let's go to page 2. So yeah, it's pretty neat how they're doing this, right? I mean, this is a good one. I actually, I was, like I said, I was hoping for like one of the ones. So here's what I was hoping to get, and maybe I'll get it in the future. Is that when I think this is probably right around 88, 89 maybe, these game magazines first became a thing, because for a while, like the only game magazine you got was from the company that was making the games. So Nintendo Power was around, and then Sega didn't have a magazine yet, but they had like a fan newsletter thing that would go out. So your only source of information was from the companies directly. And one day I was with my mom at the mall. You remember we used to go to malls? And they had like a little news rack thing there. So we went over to the news rack thing, and there was like video game magazines. And I was like, what? Video game magazines about video games? I can't believe it. And what was cool about these magazines was that they weren't made by the company. So the first one that I got was Game Players. And I just devoured that because I was really, really into video games as a kid. And this was like 88, 89, right when all the new systems are coming out. You're trying to get all the information. And back then, there wasn't an internet that you could go to. I think I was on bulletin board systems and stuff, but the information of what was going on in Japan wasn't available. So those magazines were really cool. And around that time, just to kind of put the channel into context here, I was starting, long story, but there was an article in my local paper about a kid locally that had his own cable access TV show. And I said, I want to do that. So I called to the cable company and got the whole thing set up, and I got the training class, and then I had a show. I had a show about nothing. I didn't know what to talk about. But I was really into video games. Then I started taking the information I was getting from the magazines and reporting on it on the little show I was doing. And by coincidence, maybe not so coincidence, one of the big advertisers in the game magazine was the Ultimate Game Club, and they were located in the town next over from me. So here's like this two-page spread advertiser in the magazine I just bought that's right next door. So I used to go over there and grab footage from with my camcorder plugged into the splitter on their thing. I used to grab footage of the games that they were importing from Japan. And they had all the systems. They had a Super Graphics. I found some of the Super Graphics footage I captured recently on a VHS tape. It was really cool. So, so all those things kind of coalesced there. And so I was hoping to find that first magazine that I bought, because I still remember what was in it. And I think it was Game Players issue 1. And I have issue 2 that I downloaded, but I couldn't find issue 1. So maybe I'll make a request over there to see if they can send me issue 1. So yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. Yeah, what's funny about Gold Star, so LG, you know what LG stands for? It stands for Lucky Gold Star. That's what LG stands for. And so they made those low-cost TVs back then. Now they've got like some of the best TVs, right? The OLEDs that came out. Pretty neat. Christopher Dale, yeah, a few of you said I should send in those cards. I should do that. Let's see, what's the address? I wonder who's even there anymore. Because who bought GamePro? I wonder where it would end up. It's postage paid, so I could send it right in. P.O. Box 5527, Boulder, Colorado. But isn't this like such a 90s it's such a 90s graphic design style. Got away from like you had, the layout, everything just speaks to the 90s here. And you never have a page of anything white, right? There's always some stuff in the background. And to a large degree, a lot of the reason why you started seeing more creative design at that point was that they were using computers to make the magazines. So my mom, when she first started working in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, she was a graduate of the Manhattan School of Visual Arts, and she was a graphic designer. And the way they used to make magazines was with X-Acto blades and photographs. So what you would do is you would paste up that you would have your text, you'd paste it on a board, you grab your photo, you paste it on, and so you would take a picture of, physically take a picture of what you were laying out, and they would make plates from that and print. So when you switched over to desktop publishing, everything was digital. So you could bring in an image, you could make it lighter, and then just like we do, like all of us do today, right? So that's what a lot of the advancements in computing allowed you to do. So they were probably using PageMaker or what was the other one that was out? There was PageMaker. I don't think InDesign was available. There was Aldus Freehand, I think. There was a few things out there. But you'll see that if you go back and look at magazines of like the 80s, the early 80s versus the 90s. There's so many more elements to everything just because of the technology. You made it easier to do these kinds of layouts. But the tricky thing is the registration, which is making sure that when you're printing, everything lines up properly, because these things have there's 4 layers of ink, CMYK, right? So if you were to look at this is not a true green. If you look closer, you'll see a mix of the red, green, and blue passes, and cyan, magenta, yellow, and black passes as it goes through. So this is a process color, not a. You could get a real color. So when we did my old family business, we did a catalog, and some of the color was spot color. We actually picked a Pantone color that added another run through the press, right? So I think our catalog went through like 5 or 6 runs to get the exact color matched to the corporate standard or whatever. So, I know enough about graphic design to be dangerous, even though I'm really bad at it. So yeah, there was, who did something on this? I think Rob Crowther here said his mate had a SNES with an emulator on the top of it. Yeah, so there was a device, there was a couple of them out there that would allow you to essentially download games, a lot of times from bulletin board systems, put them on a floppy drive, and then this device would load it into the SNES. I acquired a similar device with a CD-ROM for the Nintendo 64 when I was on a trip to Hong Kong once. So those were out there. And I think Modern Vintage Gamer did something, I'm pretty sure it was him. He did something on that device. It was pretty neat. Somebody in the retro space had done that. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, this was fun. So I think I got enough for the wrap up here. I'm going to do a little bit on the foundation and what I think is cool about what they do. And that will free Monday up so I can work on the video that I want to have up ready for Tuesday, which I think you all will find interesting. But this is cool. I'm going to hold on to this. Very, very neat. So Red Hornet here was thinking about getting into game development. So he subscribed to Game Sutra when it started. David Yablonsky's favorite Spider-Man game was Spider-Man Comic Maker. Pretty cool. Black Worm is here. And Mark says, I love making games, but my math is terrible. Yeah, I was in the same boat. The problem I had is I wasn't very good at art. And I'm an okay, I understand the foundations of coding, but I just couldn't get I didn't have the patience to sit and try to code something, a game like that. I really wish, and what's funny is I think what happened was when I was a kid, the development tools, and this is like back to the Apple II era, the development tools were very expensive. So you couldn't just make software easily. You had to buy, a development package. And I think probably a little too young to learn assembly language. I was in second grade when we got the first Apple computer, the one that we got. It was an 83 or 84. We got an Apple IIe. It's in the closet over there. But my dad was using it for work, and my father was an electrical engineer before he started his business, but he didn't know how to program. And my only, I think I was just too young to get the concept of programming at that point. I think I would have been, had I been older, I probably would have gotten into BASIC and then kind of gone from there. Because BASIC came with the computer, but it was very, very slow, not as fast as like assembly language would be. So that was something that kind of led to where it was. And what's funny is I had an idea. So I had an idea for a game. It was something. So remember that game Sewer Shark? It was on the Sega CD. So I had an idea for a game like it. It was so weird when Sewer Shark came out because that was the game I wanted to make as a kid. And there was a bunch of us in school. We had a teacher that was kind of interested in helping us, but they didn't have the budget to buy the development tools. But we wanted to make a game about clearing out sewers of these monsters. And it ended up looking exactly like Sewer Shark looked, like what was in our head, or my head, was what Sewer Shark turned out to be, which was kind of funny. But now I make YouTube videos, so I guess it's kind of the same thing, right? So pretty neat. So Mark Dell says that Wing Commander and Wing Commander's Secret Missions came out in the SNES, but not right. So Wing Commander 2 never came out. That's interesting that they had looked at it, because that Wing Commander 2 was great. I really liked Wing Commander 1, and it was funny because I hadn't heard of Wing Commander when I bought it. This was I think Wing Commander 1 probably came out in '92. Oh, here's a funny thing that I missed this when we were going through it before. You know what's funny? I think I had this magazine. Did we find this part when we went through it before? I must have just flipped through it. Let me see if I looked at that. Hang on a sec. I'm just going to go pull this up real quick. I'm just going through it here to see if we talked about it. This is on page 108. Oh yeah, it's right here. Okay, so I must have missed this part. I was just blabbing away. So yeah, I'm gonna cut in real quick on this part here. So here's a fun section called SWAT Pro, and as I was scrolling through here, I remember doing this. So NBA Jam, the tournament edition on the Genesis and Super Nintendo, had some secret codes you could type in, and it would replace the heads of the basketball players with celebrities and political figures from the time. So they had Bill and Hillary here, Heavy D, the Fresh Prince, Jazzy Jeff, who is Will Smith's cohort there. Larry Bird you could put in, who I think was retired at that point. Weasel, Air Dog, isn't that funny? And so there was a bunch of codes you could type in to get all these faces unlocked. And I guess, hey, if you can easily digitize faces, why not throw them in there, right? Pretty funny. That is cool. Let's go back to the top page here. Yeah, I loved NBA Jam. That was one of my favorite games. And it's funny. I saw it at an arcade, and I was like, "Wow, it looks like the on-screen graphics look just like the TV would look like, right?" So that was pretty neat. I was going through some of these I was like way behind in my chats here. So David Yablonsky was, my daughter just jumped on watching me. She was thrown off by all this 90s retro stuff. Here you can get top dollar for your games. Which company is this? I think the store I used to go to was out of business by this point. Call today. And you have your Game Genie codes back here too. Let me record a little spot here. And here you've got some Game Genie codes because there wasn't a lot of online resources you could quickly get these from. So here you go. We've got some for Battletech, Sonic and Knuckles, Jam It Basketball, Donkey Kong Country. Here's Infinite Lives. Good stuff. And you can sell your games too. Pretty fun. Yeah, I would say the 90s were a pretty good decade here. Oops. They were definitely a good decade. You know what was good about the 90s was things were just good. But you know what, though? It's like you always have fonder memories for the past than it really was. So, it was... college was always stressful trying to keep up with papers and assignments and everything. So it was always... hindsight, the grass is always greener somewhere else. But, yeah, good stuff. That's cool. Yeah, so the way this works is like you can subscribe to this through that foundation, and you get one of these every month. You could do like a one-off, or you can have them send you one every month. And I did the monthly one. $20. Why not? Supports the art form. The only art form that my wife yells at me, I don't appreciate enough art forms. So there you go. All right, well, I wanted to just jump on and do that because this came in a couple of days ago, and I was just trying to find the right time in which we could spend some time to actually do a proper unboxing. So I am happy we were able to do that. And is Bob from Retro RGB? Yes, he is. So I'm going to send you all on what do they call this? They call it a raid. Is that what they call it? I'm going to send you all to Bob at Retro RGB's stream now because I'm going to, cause my kids are coming home soon, so I got to get ready for that. So I'm going to send out, can you all see that link? Yeah. So why don't you go over to Bob's stream now because I didn't realize he was streaming when I started mine. I would have waited because we're kind of covering the same thing. What Bob's doing right now is he's playing some Atari 2600 games right now. What is that? Is that Sonic the Hedgehog for the Atari 2600? This is what I mean. You got to check out what he's doing here. So head over to his stream and tell him I sent you. But just tell him once. Don't spam his thing. Just tell him that Lon sent you because I got to go get some stuff done. But it was great to do this little thing. I think what I'm going to do is because there's not that many people watching this stream, which is great. So I'm going to private this stream until the wrap-up posts. So the wrap-up will have the whole thumbing through the magazine thing, and we'll go from there. But just to answer a couple of quick questions here, Daniel is wondering, was this a reprint or an actual? This is actual original copy. It's in great shape. It really is. I mean, there's some imperfections. You'll see. Oops. Here, I'll give you the overhead view here. Magazines that wrong button. This one. You see it's kind of scratched up, so it's been crammed in with something else here, but it's real, the real deal. Good stuff. Blackworm's asking about the Switch emulator called Yuzu. No, I haven't tried that out. I should take a look at it. And this is funny. Mark Dell said he would go to church every Friday and people would pirate games at church. Not sure if that's a sin or not, but there you go. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for this is a quick one, but sometimes we do long streams, sometimes shorter ones. But I will be back again if I have time tomorrow. I will come back. So you always know where to find me. And I think I'm going to make this a monthly thing. So whenever I get the next edition, I'll just do another stream. So stay tuned. We'll be here for that. All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in, and hope it was a fun one. Talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.